Hey guys, Culture here. Today we'll be discussing how we control animals. More specifically, we'll look at how we domesticated our furry friends and what we use these animals for.
Yeah, like seals that balance a ball on their nose, or dolphins that jump through hoops, or elephants that fly using their ears.
No, that's not what I mean. And Dumbo isn't real, you know.
Dumbo's real. I'm looking right at him.
Did you buy canned laughter for your own jokes?
At just $9.99 a month, it's a far cheaper way of bolstering my comedic confidence than what I used to do.
What did you used to do?
I'd meet people under a bridge.
Actually, changed my mind. I don't want to know. Those animal examples you listed aren't domesticated. They're simply tamed. A tame animal has been nurtured to be less aggressive than its wild counterparts, sure, and it can follow human instruction to some degree, but it's not nearly domesticated. Domestication actually changes the animal's very nature. A domesticated species is one whose genes have been altered through selective breeding to produce an animal that is friendlier towards humans and exhibits characteristics more useful to humans.
Whoa, what do you mean by selective breeding? Is that like when my Aunt Hazel tries to set me up on dates with members of her bridge club?
Yeah, but somehow less weird. Selective breeding is when we only allow animals with desirable traits to breed. This means their offspring will hopefully carry the genes that encode for these desirable traits. Over multiple generations, the desirable traits become more and more strongly expressed. The key trait for domestication is friendliness, that is, how docile the animal is around humans. If we only breed more calm and friendly animals, then over multiple generations, we'll create a group of animals who can more safely coexist with us.
Why? Is this just some sick fetish we have? We can only get our rocks off by controlling how animals get their rocks off? Pretty freaky way to play God if you ask me.
Well, I don't ask you, I never do, but I will address your point. We selectively breed animals so that they're more useful to us. Let's go back to a time before domesticated animals, when our ancestors were still hunter-gatherers. If we wanted food for sustenance, or pelts for clothing, we needed to go out and hunt it down. Animals, unsurprisingly, didn't like being hunted, so we would expend large amounts of time and energy capturing prey. If we could instead have a regenerating supply of food and pelts at our camps, then we'd be much better off.
I can totally get behind that. I used to drag myself down to the 7-Eleven at the end of my street for late night gaming snacks. Now I just get Amazon to deliver delicious Doritos straight to my door with one of their drones.
Good lord, you're lazy.
Just wait until you see the conveyor belt I'm building that carries the Doritos from the front door and into my mouth. I'll never have to leave the computer again.
Our hunter-gatherer ancestors didn't go quite so far in reducing their workload. Instead, they captured certain animals and bred them in captivity. Originally, this would have been for food and pelts, but domesticated animals had many more uses beyond being simply resources. Horses could be used for fast transport, cattle could be used to carry heavy loads, and dogs could be used as sentinels to warn of approaching danger.
And in New Zealand, sheep could be used for quite another purpose.
Alright, that's enough. Now you'd imagine that once we'd learned about domesticating animals, all kinds of possibilities would open up. We could domesticate owls to hunt at night, or giraffes to reach food that's high up, or cheetahs to chase down prey. The potential seems endless, but it's not quite that simple. Not every animal is a suitable candidate for domestication, and there are plenty of reasons for this. To start with, domesticating an animal means finding the resources to keep it alive. A carnivore, for example, requires meat, and if we're hunting down all that meat just so we can feed this carnivore and eventually eat it, then it kind of eliminates the point, right?
I miss Snoop Lion. He was worth all the effort. Even that one time he tried to eat me. I knew he just wanted to be as close as possible.
Which brings me to my next point. The animal for domestication has to be relatively non-aggressive. A grizzly bear or hippo make awful choices for domestication since they're hostile and way stronger than us. Fun fact, the hippo is the world's deadliest large land animal. Just imagine getting crushed by one of them.
Ew, it'd be like running over a tube of toothpaste with a rolling pin, except less minty fresh.
Other animals aren't friendly, but in a more timid way. Deer or gazelle are just too nervous all the time to ever be kept in captivity. Their skittish nature would lead them to jump at the thought of any human contact.
Plus, I'd think about Bambi all the time. It'd be a super bummer.
Oh yeah, family structure is also essential for domestication.
Really? Right after I mentioned Bambi? You monster!
I mean family structure in a more general sense. Animals that are social and have dominance hierarchies can have this dynamic exploited by humans. For example, and I know you'll love this, Crash, we can look at chickens.
You must hate me.
Chickens exhibit various behaviors to assert their dominance, such as fighting with their talons, or, more commonly, pecking. That's why we use the phrase pecking order to refer to social stratification. Chickens have the ability to recognize another animal as being dominant and to fall in line behind them. Therefore, humans can take the dominant role and raise chickens that are relatively docile.
Yeah, emphasis on relatively. They're just playing the slow game, luring us into a false sense of security, then BAM! One day you wake up, your face hurts, and you can't see anything, and you find out that chickens have pecked out your eyes in the middle of the night. May God help us all.
Paranoid delusions aside, horses and sheep are also classic examples of animals with exploitable dominance hierarchies. They also exhibit one other incredibly useful characteristic. They're mostly non-territorial. They instead have ranges which they roam over, and these ranges often overlap with other herds and other animals. That means even if they're kept close together with other horses or sheep, they'll rarely fight one another.
I'm sure they would have more fights if they had to live in the same apartment. They'd be all like, "What the hell, Dave? You left the butter out on the counter again." And Dave would be all like, "Shut up, Greg. It's my butter, made from my milk, and I'll do what I want with it." And then Greg would rear up on his hind legs and knock the TV over before galloping out the front door.
The final criteria, which I'm sure you'll love to hear about, Crash, is the sexual reproduction rate and generational length of the animal.
Is that what you think of me, Culture? That I'm into bestiality?
No, not at all. I just think you're so incredibly curious about sex that your fascination extends even to animals.
All right then. Carry on.
Animals who don't like to reproduce are often awful candidates for domestication. Pandas, for example, just aren't worth the effort of raising for their meat. That's why they're endangered. Even zookeepers struggle to get them to copulate.
Give me a panda suit and I'll get the job done. I feel like my whole life has been leading up to this role.
Elephants, on the other hand, have generations that are just far too long for humans to raise them. It takes an African elephant about 11 years to reach sexual maturity. Of course, some cultures do still use elephants, like in India, but it's a great privilege to own an elephant, and they are still tamed, not domesticated. After taking into account all of these criteria, we're left with only a handful of viable candidates for domestication. I'm sure you all know which animals these are, since even a toddler learns about them.
Cow goes moo, sheep goes bah.
Yes, Crash, very good. These animals include cows, sheep, horses, pigs, goats, chickens, camels, donkeys, silkworms, cats, and the animal we'll be focusing on today, dogs. The domestication of these few animals accelerated our development, launched us from hunter-gatherers into an agricultural society, and massively boosted our population as a result. As a side note, these developments didn't occur in the Americas or Australia because there were no native animals that were good candidates for domestication. Australia had nothing, since echidnas aren't really a great source of meat, and kangaroos would just jump over any pen that they were put in. The Americas had to contend with grizzly bears and buffalo, which are essentially animal tanks. Their only option was llamas, which aren't exactly as useful as horses or cows. The lack of animal domestication is a huge reason why the Americas and Australia remained relatively underdeveloped prior to the arrival of European settlers.
Underdeveloped? What are you talking about? Aboriginals had boomerangs. I would trade all my modern conveniences for a magic stick that comes back to you when you throw it.
Really? All your modern conveniences?
Yeah!
So you'd trade your computer for a boomerang?
Okay, well, maybe not my computer.
Go on, what would you trade then?
I don't know. Showers? Toilets?
Ugh, gross. Well, let's go back to a time long before toilets and showers, the Upper Paleolithic era in the Late Stone Age. Around this time, humans were still, as far as we know, alone. We hunted with other humans, made camps with other humans, and saw animals as prey or competition. One of our biggest competitors was the wolf. Wolves hunt in packs, sensing out their prey with keen senses, tracking it down, and then chasing it, winning with endurance by cooperating with other members of the pack. This strategy was incredibly effective, and was a huge source of indirect competition with us for food.
But then we distracted them with tennis balls and snuck up behind them.
No, we
opened the cupboard where the dog food is kept, and they heard the sound and came running to us.
Crash, just listen.
Got it! We wrapped sleeping tablets in a piece of ham and fed it to them.
Crash! No, we didn't do any of that. Half of the things you just said weren't even invented back then.
I think ham existed back then, Culture. Jeez.
We didn't do anything to trap them. Instead, it's believed that wolves were drawn to the scraps we left on the outskirts of our camp. Only the most trusting wolves would dare venture that close to a human camp, but these wolves were rewarded with easy food and therefore had a better chance of surviving. Over time, wolves became more and more trusting of humans, growing even closer. By accident, wolves that were disturbed by a threat in the night would make a lot of noise, alerting the nearby human camp to danger as well. This was the first instance of watchdogs. A common theory suggests that a wolf may have died defending its pups, leaving them orphaned. Humans may then have found the pups and taken them into the camp. We know that both humans and wolves bond via the release of oxytocin in the brain, the same hormone which bonds human mothers with their actual babies. This link may have been strong enough to evoke maternal urges in human mothers.
The beginning of the end, culture. Now look at all these millennials with their fur babies, buying only the most premium foodstuffs, dressing them up like little people, taking them to cafes. It's against the natural order of things, damn it!
Oh, but it's very natural for us to be so close, Crash. These events were taking place so long ago, about 30,000 years ago by some findings, that humans and dogs are now practically inseparable. Dogs became the first domesticated animal. They're called man's best friend for a reason.
If any of my friends pooped on my lawn, then I stepped in it, I would immediately send them packing!
Crash's personal feelings aside, dogs were incredibly useful to us. We made use of their tracking abilities and endurance to help us as hunting partners. Plus, we turned their instinct to drive away prey into a technique for herding animals. In return, we gave dogs a more constant supply of food and extra safety within our camp. Together, with this symbiotic relationship, man and dog progressed into the agricultural era and beyond. The overwhelming success of this partnership was due to social structure. The wolf's pack mentality meant that we humans could take the role as the alpha wolf. Other wolves were happy to share their catches with us, since we were essentially their leader.
I've always considered myself something of an alpha male. There isn't a single person out there who can beat my high score on Bloons Tower Defense 5. That's right, ladies. Can you believe this guy's single?
Dogs as we know them now, Canis lupus familiaris, greatly diversified during the Victorian era in England. We already had some different types for certain roles. Sleek dogs for racing, dogs with long snouts for flushing animals out of their burrows, etc. But the introduction of kennel clubs led to the standardization of breeds and breeding solely for appearance. Whereas pointers and bloodhounds were bred for a specific function, poodles and shih tzus were bred for aesthetics alone. This can lead to some really cute dogs, but it can also seriously mess with their bodies. Pugs have such squished snouts that it can be hard for them to breathe, while Dachshunds have long bodies that commonly lead to back problems.
Our mastery over other animals is both awe-inspiring and terrifying.
Indeed. Now we know more about our effect on dogs and other animals, we have a huge responsibility to do right by them. After all, dogs aren't just tools to us. They're another relationship. We know that scientifically, simply patting a dog decreases the levels of stress hormones in both the person and the dog. Dogs have even grown to understand our body language and look into our eyes to determine what we want. We have to treat our furry friends in the best way possible.
Hey, you're not hearing any complaints from me. I, for one, am a huge advocate of the furry subculture.
That's not what whatever. In an upcoming episode, we're going to look into the ethics of domestication, what our duty is when caring for animals, and what factors affect our decisions when trying to improve an animal's quality of life. See you all soon.